this is Jen from Winrose Fiber Studio. Today we're exploring the Astrakhan Stitch. Today I'll be using just a basic medium weight craft yarn and a 5.5mm crochet hook. Let's jump right in. You can begin with any number of stitches. Keep in mind that you'll add 3 to your base chain, which will count as your first double crochet. I am making a small swatch and beginning by chaining 10. For row 1, you'll skip the first 3 chains. Those will count as your first double crochet, and then you'll work a double crochet in the 4th chain from your hook and in each chain across. I'm working in the back bumps, so I have this nice edge. To work a double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Here we are at the end of row 1, which is simply a row of double crochet. Please note that at the end of this row, you will not be turning your work. Row 2 is where this pattern caught me a little off guard. The directions are to chain 7, and then without turning your work, you'll skip this first stitch and work through the front loop only of the next stitch to the right. Now this can seem sort of awkward. The chain is in your way, making it hard to see that stitch. If you hold the chain out of the way, then you have to make sure that your working yarn is on the right side of your hook, depending on how you hold your hook. It felt awkward enough that I pondered whether or not I was even doing it right. So let's try that again. I'm just going to hold my chain down, go under the front loop of the next stitch, and work my slip stitch. So once I had decided the best way to hold and manage my work, I set off to keep going on with this stitch pattern, but I'll say that it's even a little hard to make sure you're not working into the stitch that you just worked into or skipping a stitch. I just, for whatever reason, found this kind of uncomfortable. But let's carry on. You chain 7 and then you work a slip stitch in the front loop of the next stitch to the right. Eventually, I get into the swing of things and the rest of this row goes smoothly. The last stitch of row 2 will be worked into the top of the turning chain. Row 3 begins with a chain 3. Note that you'll have one less loop than you have double crochets. I have 8 double crochets and 7 loops. For row 3, we'll double crochet in the back loops, so those unworked back loops back across. My brain is happy again. I'm back to just working double crochets. The back loops are very easy to see, except for maybe the last one. It can hide a little bit. If you give that last loop a little tug, it kind of shows itself. It's always a good idea to double check your stitch count. And here we are placing our very last stitch of row 3. To continue on with the pattern, you'll repeat rows 2 and 3 respectively. I'm going to do one more row. So we've done our chain 7, we do not turn, we skip this first stitch, and we're going to work in the front loop of the next stitch to the right and place a slip stitch. We'll chain 7 and then slip stitch in the front loop only of the next stitch to the right. You repeat this all the way across, with the last stitch being placed at the top of the turning chain 3. As we come to the end of another loop row, I want to have a close look at our work. Now this creates very uniform rows of loops. Even if you try to fluff them up a little bit, they very much want to stay in these neat rows. Here's a larger swatch with 3 rows, and you can see that this is how this fabric is going to look. Now this is more what the picture in my pattern book looked like, and really what attracted me to working this stitch up. So how do you use the Astrakhan stitch to make a fabric that looks like this? I am going to quickly cruise through a repeat of row 3 and play around with this a little bit. Here I am, and I'm ready to try something a little different. I'm going to work my chain 7. I'm going to skip that first stitch, and I'm still going to work a slip stitch in the front loop of the next stitch to the right, but this time I'm going to work from the top down. I've got my work turned a little bit sideways, and right away this gets my chain 7 out of my way. It's easy to see where the next stitch is placed. I'm already a happier camper. Now, of course, there's really no difference between what I'm doing and chaining 7, turning your work, skipping the first stitch, and then working slip stitches in the back loops of the next stitch all the way across. I am really doing the same thing, and I think the reason why I'm kind of just turning my work sideways is I'm still sort of trying to honor the pattern and not turn my work and work back across the way I came. I still want to be able to call my stitch an Astrakhan stitch. Here I am at the end of the row. You can see that my work has rotated more to the back than to the side. The final stitch is worked into the top of the turning chain. So here we have it. This is looking much more the way I expected the stitch to look. The stitches are standing more upright. They're not interlocked. They're very separate from each other. You can see that these overlap and kind of weigh each other down, whereas the row I just made is much more wild and free. I can see that when I have a piece of fabric all worked up and the stitches made this way, the result is going to be much more like woolly fur or a shag carpet. Definitely the look that I was going for, and also the look represented by my pattern book. I just finished another loop row. This time I totally gave in. I chained 7, turned my work, skipped the first stitch, and then worked a slip stitch in the back loop of the next stitch all the way across. The question is, can I still call this an Astrakhan stitch? Is one right and one wrong? And honestly, I don't know. So if you're watching this and you have any insights and you'd like to share them in the comments below, I would love to learn more. I will freely admit that I am probably wildly overthinking this. I think that because I'm sharing this tutorial with you, I really want to get it right, but the truth is I can see really cool applications for both of these, whether it's these tight, controlled little curls or the wild and shaggy fabric. I think they're both a lot of fun, and I know I'm going to enjoy designing with them. This is where I would love to tell you that I just sort of chilled out and started having fun, and in fact, I did decide that I really needed to make a pillow, so I started working this in the round. I will share this project with you when it's complete, but for now, I'm just going to crochet a little bit while I take you down another rabbit hole with me. So whether the Astrakhan stitch has tight uniform coils or wild shaggy ones, I still really wanted to know where the name came from. The name just didn't make any connections for me. My first search turned up a city in Russia on the Volga River. It's the southernmost outpost and a city steeped in history, but this seemed like a dead end until I discovered that Astrakhan is also another name used for the caracal sheep. I was still a bit confused because this breed of sheep comes from Central Asia. The pieces started to come together once I learned that Indian traders established a community in Astrakhan, bringing the caracal sheep to this region. The fleece became known as Astrakhan fur because it was first brought to Russia by this community of traders. I still wanted to deepen the connection between the crochet stitch and this particular breed of sheep. As it turns out, the Astrakhan stitch mimics the tight curls of newborn caracal lambs. Some of the lambs seem to have curls that are uniform, while others are more random. I think I was trying to establish if there was truly a right or wrong way to represent the Astrakhan stitch. At the end of the day, I think I'm just going to accept that it can be made in more than one way. And it's up to the crocheter to decide how they want their fabric to look and feel, and what's the purpose that they plan to use this fabric for. If you have been crocheting for any length of time, chances are very good that you have employed a loopy stitch like this one. I've used it in flowers, scarves, and even a cute little crop sweater that I made. I imagine it's a go-to in the plushie making world for hair and fur. And with that, I think it's time to go ahead and add the Astrakhan stitch to my stitch library. I'm going to save both versions because I can really see using both of these applications in future designs. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. If so, please hit like and subscribe. I post videos every Tuesday and often on Saturdays as well. I'm really looking forward to sharing more patterns and stitches with you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.